So that now that we have finished PS I Love You and I've put it in a playlist, you guys can go and like just play it one by one and the whole book would be there for you guys. I'm just gonna start like try to complete this book as well. It's fairly small, it's really, really small compared to it's a half of the pages compared to PS I Love You, and we've already completed like nine chapters. So let's get into it and complete this book as well as soon as possible because I'm dying to start like um series reviews, book reviews and all. I'm just like dying to dive into that area. Let's start with this chapter right here. The problem was ongoing. I rose before dawn, carried the loaves into the backyard, started a fire in the Jay's teeth, let it roar. When I reached in to push the coals to the back, the intensity of the heat made it suddenly clear the oven in my kitchen was no oven at all. The tiny hairs on my arm all vaporized. Four loaves went in, and I jammed the wooden plug into the place. Then I did a little jig. 40 minutes later, my hands shielded my thick mitts by thick mitts. I yanked the plug. The loaves were bigger than before, colored a deeper gold. Clearly visible in the cracks and crevices of the crust were the white smiles they wore. Everybody was happy. The simple math of it was astonishing, and I felt the giddy leverage of technology more palpably. I should add them at any moment during my general dexterity orientation. This was simple and direct. Before the machine, I could make two loaves. After the machine, I could make four. For the first time in my life, I realized why a person might be interested in capital. This was capital. I slammed through one batch of four leaves and another. It took every ounce of restraint not to cut into the sourdough myself. It wasn't even 6 a.m., and I set the two loaves, rough occupilates, all smiling. I had stopped worrying about the faces. I wrapped the loaves in paper towels, resolved to buy more appropriate swaddling. What was the appropriate swaddling? And I hustled out the door. It was still dark outside. To the east, downtown San Francisco was obscured by hills, but the lights glowed stotchy purple on the underbelly of the marine lair. The General Dexterity office was quiet, but not deserted. Chef Kate was in her kitchen, bent over a notebook, building a tall, skinny to-do list. Her two sous chefs stood at their stations, wrapping their knives through thick heads of cabbage and long green onions. This morning it was slow rolling hip hop on the Bluetooth speaker. Here's your first shipment, I said, presenting the loaves. Chef Kate inspected them one by one. These look pretty good, she said. Consistent. But there's the crust. She indicated the whorls of the faces. How the hell do you do that? I told her it had been an accident the first time, and I'd repeated the step every time since, which was technically the truth, if not entirely forthright. It's weird, dude, but I think I like it. You've got an invoice for me, or what? Later that day, I carried it to her. Warm from the office printer, $40. I made more than that in 15 minutes of programming. But this money felt special. It was a decidedly different kind of work. At General Dexterity, I was contributing to an effort to make repetitive labor obsolete. After a trainer in the Task Acquisition Center taught an arm how to do something, all the arms did it perfectly forever. In other words, you solved one problem once and then you moved on to more interesting things. Baking, by contrast, was solving the same problem over and over again. Because each time the solution was consumed, I mean, really chewed and digested, thus the problem was ongoing. Thus the problem was perhaps the point. On Tuesday morning, I baked 8 more loaves. Every day after work, rather than migrate to the bar down the street with Arjun, I went straight home. I timed the bus perfectly, ran from the stop on Fulton Street to my front door, barreled into my apartment, because I had so much to do. I had to mix fresh dough, let it set, work it again, shape it into loaves, all before bedtime, and bedtime was early. With a bar of sunlight still crossing the foot of my futon, it felt strange but good. Wednesday, 8 more loaves. My hours at desk became a blur. The moment I left the office, my brain shifted gears. The interlocking complexities of ARM OS were gone. evaporated, and all that existed was the labor ahead. Thursday, even 8 more loaves. Chef Kate made grilled cheese sandwiches using my sourdough, and I saw them being consumed in the cafeteria. I saw roboticists' faces wrapped with pleasure. I saw Andre and CEO carrying one on his tray. I took loose slices of sourdough, buttered luxuriously in the Chef Kate style, over to the slurry table. Perhaps sharply declined, of course, but Arjun and Garrett both, perhaps nahi hai. Peter. Peter sharply declined, of course, but Arjun and Garrett both snatched them up greedily. This is so good, Garrett said. Can I order it online? Friday 8 more loaves. Some mornings the repetition felt zen like, others Sisyphean. But in either case, it felt so good to use my arms, not my fingertips, my nose, not my eyes. On Friday afternoon, Chef Kate told me the sourdough had been pretty freaking good, dude. I squealed and asked me to keep it coming. From Beale. As I mentioned before, nearly every city in Europe has a community of Maz, but they can be hard to detect. The Maz like to live in alleys and courtyards or up above the street. One of my uncles calls us second story people, which has a nice sound to it, I guess. Here's the thing. I think many of my relatives like being obscure because it means they can't be ambitious either. It lets them off the hook. I think more people should know about the mask, particularly our cuisine. I think we should have restaurants with signs and front doors. I think a lot of things. So that was the end of the chapter. It came with a email from Bioreg, which I just read. The chapters are pretty small. They're like on an average 4 to 5 pages. I guess there'll be like eventually a 7 to 8 or like 10 over 10 pages chapter, but otherwise the chapters are pretty small. So there'll be a lot of chapters, but the book is not that big. So I'll see you soon. Um, yeah, it feels pretty good. It's gonna end like pretty soon. It's not that big. It's an easy read. So yeah, bye bye.